Once upon a time, in a vibrant, bustling city, there lived a curious and energetic young boy named Max. Max was fascinated by the world around him, always eager to explore new horizons. He was like a sponge, absorbing everything he saw, heard, and experienced. Max's neighborhood was a lively place, filled with various people, each with their unique stories and outlooks on life. Among them was Mr. Johnson, an elderly man known for his wisdom and positivity. He had a heart full of warmth and a smile that could brighten anyone's day. On the other side of Max's street lived Mrs. Smith, who was always tuned into the latest news and media. Her days were often spent absorbed in the constant stream of negative headlines and reports. As he went about his daily adventures, he couldn't help but notice the stark contrast between Mr. Johnson's cheerful outlook and Mrs. Smith's constant worry. One sunny afternoon, Max decided to have a chat with Mr. Johnson. He asked, "Mr. Johnson, why are you always so positive and full of joy?" Mr. Johnson chuckled warmly and replied, "Well, Max, life is what you make of it. I've learned that it doesn't matter what's happening in the world. What truly matters is what's happening in your world. I focus on my interests, my passions, and the things that bring me joy. That way, I don't let the negativity of the world bring me down." Max was intrigued by Mr. Johnson's wisdom, and the seed of positivity began to take root in his young heart. A few days later, Max found himself pondering Mrs. Smith's constant exposure to negative news. He couldn't help but wonder how it affected her, so he decided to have a conversation with her as well. "Mrs. Smith," Max asked, "why do you spend so much time with the news? Doesn't it make you sad?" Mrs. Smith looked at Max and said, "You're right, Max. The news can be quite overwhelming at times, but I believe it's essential to stay informed about the world. However, I must admit that it can be disheartening. It's a reminder of the challenges we face." Max nodded, taking in her perspective. He realized that staying informed was crucial, but he also understood the importance of finding a balance between awareness and maintaining a positive outlook. As Max continued to grow, he learned valuable lessons from both Mr. Johnson and Mrs. Smith. He discovered that, like his body adapting to its environment, his mind also absorbed the influences around him. Max chose to surround himself with positive influences, just like Mr. Johnson, and he remained open to staying informed, like Mrs. Smith. He realized that he could shape his own outlook on life by carefully selecting the media he consumed and the people he spent time with.